What is good, everyone? This is your host, Deanna Radulescu with Label Free Podcast. Live your best life. You must live label free. As always, bringing you incredible guests. We're actually here in person, so sit back, relax, and tune in. Our next guest has been on the show before. He is returning almost 2 years later with another best-selling book. He is an author of 2 books now. He's an IT specialist, travel, and UFC enthusiast. Please welcome Bob Biga. Bob, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
It's so great to do this in person.
It is.
So what, was this like 2 years ago that we were able to do our first show together?
I believe it was around Thanksgiving, yeah, of 2020, yeah.
Well, just in time for Christmas. So Bob is a writer of, an author of fiction novels. So we've got his first one here, The Education of Adam. Fantastic book. Why don't you give us a quick snapshot of what this book is about?
Sure. This is actually what we would consider a dystopian novel. What it's about is about a kid who's basically an orphan, and what he is he's brought to a school basically in the middle of nowhere. It's a government-run school, and basically he has to figure out what's going on there because basically all of the adults there, which are not their relatives, are running the school, and he notices some nefarious things going on around there. But without giving up too much about what happens in the book, basically he
keep it a secret.
He meets a couple people that he kind of like chums around with, and he realizes that not everything is what it seems in the backdrop of this world that seems to be kind of going to hell.
Okay, fantastic. And where can people find this book?
This is on Amazon. You'll be able to find it on Amazon Kindle, and you'll be able to buy it from Amazon.
Excellent. All right,
and so it's also if you go to fultonbooks.com, it's on there also.
Awesome. All right, now you have your second book. Actually, you have a third one too, which we will get into. Let's get into a little bit about this book. So when did you start writing this book?
I started writing this almost immediately after I finished this. When you write, you kind of just go from one book to another, also while you're editing. I had somebody editing this, and then I started on this one. I've had these ideas in my head for years, so I kind of just want to get them down on the paper.
Sure.
As a matter of fact, this book right here, Fate's Collision, was actually the first idea that I ever had.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. And I can remember exactly when and where I came up with this idea. There is this movie which is not similar to this story, but where I got the idea. There's this movie called Halloween 3.
Okay. I think everybody knows Halloween, right?
But it's actually not the Michael Myers one.
Oh, okay.
It's a weird story on how those movies came about. It's actually about... Well, you'd have to see the whole movie, but it's notorious.
Okay.
People either love it or hate it. With the movie, I remember seeing the cover, and it's kind of similar to this in a way. Basically, it has a few kids on the cover. It has like a real kind of like a orange background sky like this. And I always thought, wow, it would be really, really frightening if you were a kid of maybe like, 14 or 15 being off by yourself in the middle of nowhere when like basically a national emergency is happening. You have no adults around and everything like that. And you have to get home. And, a lot of the kids in the books are kind of reckless, so they don't know anything. Only one of them can technically drive. So basically, I had that idea, and I thought, hey, you know what? Maybe that'd be a good idea for a story one day. And then, that was 1990, so 30 years later, I actually put it on paper.
That's awesome. So how long did it take you to write this book?
Probably about 8 months, and then you go through editing, and that takes a while because with editing you want to do it right. I had some peer reviews, and then I also had a professional editor. It's called Scott Editorial. They're based out of England. They're really good. They're actually doing my next book, my third novel, but my fourth one going to be published. Yeah, with my editing, I basically looked online. I looked on Facebook, and I asked around because I'm in a bunch of writing groups about. I said, hey, can somebody tell me what might cost, for editing because most people edit actually by per word. So word count does matter. Like, for instance, this was originally 120,000 words.
Holy cow.
And after they edited it, went down to like 90,000.
Oh.
But basically, it was 120,000 words time whatever their price is.
Sure.
And the person I work with, Rebecca, was very, very good at that. She gave me, because, a lot of places can, like, just tell you about, like, oh, you put this word wrong, or, you spelled it wrong. But Rebecca also told me about, like, oh, this doesn't fit, this is a continuity error. Okay. This person probably wouldn't do that. I took that into consideration. Stuff like that. That's what you really need. And then you also need some of your peers
Sure.
And then you probably need sometimes some people who are not your peers because you want them to be honest about it.
Yeah. So these are some tips for people that are wanting to be an author or are authors that, you know, perhaps need a little extra guidance in their process.
Exactly. And that's another thing I would also suggest is I would, if you have an idea, just write it down, even if you're in, you know, bed or whatever, or something like that, or wherever, in the shower. If you can, write it down as soon as you can, because sometimes people forget about a lot of their types of ideas.
Creativity.
You know, yeah, exactly. With this book, I mean, for instance, the ending was not what I originally thought, but I thought about it like halfway through, what the ending was going to be, meaning not the original ending.
Right, sure.
I changed it, and I think the ending that I came up with was much better, and that was just something I just thought of.
Today's episode is brought to you by Honeylove. Ladies, let's talk about shapewear. We all know most shapewear makes you feel like you're being suffocated. That sexy dress in the back of your closet is so freaking cute, but the thought of having your inside squished by your shapewear is just not worth it. That's why Honeylove spent years researching and developing effective shapewear that's actually comfortable. Overly tight, cheap, and sticky fabrics that roll up are a thing of the past. Thanks to Honeylove, you can finally feel confident and comfortable in your favorite outfits. We have an exclusive deal for our listeners. For a limited time only, you can get Honeylove's best deal they offer. Get 20% off your entire order with the code LABEL320 at honeylove.com. That's right, ladies. Get 20% off of your entire order with LABEL320 at honeylove.com. So that leads me to my next question. Why fiction? So first of all, I say this a lot on the show, which you got anybody's listening, you guys know. I think it takes incredible discipline to write a book, because I have 2 books I want to write. One for the show, and I have a ton of poems I've written my entire life. So I have 2. And I just can't seem to discipline myself to sit down and actually start the process. So when it comes to fiction, I feel like that's even harder when it's not an anthology or poems or anything like that. Why fiction?
I like to tell a story of how I maybe picture it as a movie.
Okay.
You know, something like that. Because I always picture everything like a movie. You know, I think most people do. Fortunately, the stuff that happened in these books weren't real life. But, you know, I've always been fascinated with movies. So I kind of figure it's like my way of making a movie. I mean, it's an easier way to do it.
Sure.
I mean, you could also...
Well, that means that somebody could possibly make a movie out of it.
They could. And you could script write it. You can make your own. Or you could, you know, try to sell it to somebody, which... Eventually, maybe I thought of that. You know, it's, if there is a market. I mean, but
yeah, for fiction, there's a huge market. So I had someone on the show. I feel like this is very interesting. Anybody that has been a fiction writer on the show has been in IT. So, which I think is very interesting. Why do you think that is?
I don't know. Maybe we're creative. I'm not with that. I'm not sure. But you're right. Or it may be also that. You learn to manage your time. I mean, because with when you're writing, it's like, for instance, I have a way that I write, and I don't know if anybody else does this, but one thing I do think about is I make it like, almost like, it bothers me if I don't write.
Sure.
So, like, you always make a goal, but never overextend that goal. Like, say, I'm going to make like 2 pages a day, and that's it. You know?
Sure.
At least try 2 pages, maybe 3, but never write 10, because then you're just writing to write. Like, you're writing to have, I did 10 pages today, but what's 10 pages of what?
Yeah,
You know, make it 2 good pages as opposed to 10 average pages.
Yeah. But I think, though, that you are using both sides of your brain, because as an IT specialist, you're more analytical, whereas where you're writing something fiction, you are using a different side of your brain, which requires creativity, and I think that those two is almost conflicting. And I think I've asked this question before, but I find it fascinating.
I never thought of it with it. That may very well be true. I try not to think about too much stuff when I'm writing. Like I said, it's like I just try to put out what my ideas are, and I know I'll be able to go back and fix them later.
Yeah.
But like I said, but I also set goals, and like sometimes like I have a fourth. I have 2 novels that are published so far. I have a short story, and then I have my 4th novel, which I'm working on right now.
Oh boy!
And
wow.
And I want to basically, with that story, I want to have a goal of when I want it to be done and be editing and be out. And I'm hoping for the summer.
So these are all fiction novels?
Correct.
So I think I used to love fiction when I was a little girl. I used to read Christopher Pike. I don't know if anybody remembers that. But it was like a way to escape my reality. That's what I consider fiction to be. So for me, when I was little, I grew up in a very abusive home. It's not a secret. And I would go and I would just read. I'd have my mom drop me off at the library. I'd stay there for hours and read. And so I loved fiction because it was a way for me just to kind of disconnect from everything that was going on around me. And so when I talk to people that are fiction authors, I want to understand, like, because there has to be something there that you're just trying to either create in your own life or trying to create a different world.
And that is true. I mean, I'm glad you brought that up, because actually somebody that I started talking to online, who I consider my friend, I started reading hers.
Oh,
I've known her for about a year. I mean, she just after we talked a while, she told me like what happened to her in her life, and she was able to convey it in her book.
Yeah,
which is very brave. I think it's very good. My books are different. I mean, sometimes there's composites of people like I used to know in these books, but
sure.
Obviously the things never really happen, judging by what happens in the books. But I think it's a good thing to be able to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think that it's powerful to be able to take that something, if you've gone through some kind of trauma and you are becoming an author and you're able to make that a little bit more therapeutic for you in your writing, that's great. But where can people find you, connect with you, and learn more about you, Bob?
I am on Facebook. I do have a group. It's called RW Biga Author, like the title here. If you want to join that, you can find out about all my new releases, and I make new updates to there. Every time I have something new or it's on sale. Like, for instance, my first book here, Education of Adam, was actually at 90% off recently. So I put that out there and I got some other people to buy it. It was good. And then about 4 times a year, this is important, if you decide to actually publish your book on Amazon, with Amazon, not through a publisher, 4 times a year, you can actually put your book on there with special prices for them. Which is actually what I'm going to be doing in probably about 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay.
So, like, for instance, I could put it for like 99 cents. Sometimes you have free. And it's also very good to get reviews, because the more reviews you get on Amazon, the more that Amazon sees your book. So it's like, let's say you have, I think one of my books here has 84 reviews. Usually after you get about 50 reviews with people actually write comments, they start lumping your books with other books similar.
Sure.
So that's extremely important. Reviews.
Okay. Well, we're getting more tips here for people. That's awesome. What would you say is your ideal reader for each of these books? So if anybody's listening, you might be the ideal reader for this one.
I would say this is probably about 15 to 21, and the same with this one.
Oh,
Now, my short story, which just actually came out about a month ago, called Snowbound, is probably more for adults. It's only 31 pages. It's a short story, and it's only on Amazon Kindle for right now.
Okay.
But I would say that's more adult.
So why would you say 15 to 21? What about this makes this more appealing to the younger crowd?
Because most of the characters are probably between 50 and 20 years old, so that's why.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, cool. I mean, I love the cover. I think it's very interesting to me. It makes me want to say, hey, in the name, Fate's Collision. I mean, hey, I can go transport myself back to high school years and try to, like, embed myself in the book and, go for a ride. Speaking
of the actual cover, I actually got this from a group based out of, I think it was Maryland, called The Starving Artist. They did a very good job on this, and they got it to me within a day and a half.
Oh, that's cool.
I mean, because they have obviously a really good team there.
This is a great resource. So what's The Starving Artist?
It's just, well, from what I know, they just make book covers and different kinds of art that you'd want to put, like, on your websites and stuff like that.
Very cool. So now that you're into your 4th novel, what would be a great piece of advice for anybody that's looking to write their own book?
Well, from what I see through other people that I've heard, like, for instance, there was somebody actually at that I used to work with who was kind of afraid of just, like, putting it out there, because maybe sometimes people are afraid of criticism, but, never be afraid. It's always your own work. Yeah. Not everybody's going to like your work, but probably most people will. And you can't please everybody. So, and you have to, and criticism, you get, it happens. Nothing's ever perfect. So.
If everybody loved you, then you're doing something wrong, because you got to have some haters. Okay, when you have haters out there, you're doing something right. Okay?
That's exactly how I would feel about it. You're right. Nothing can ever please everybody.
That's right. Well, we're starting to the point in the show where we're going to start wrapping things up. So, what are some last words of wisdom or advice you'd like to leave with the audience today?
Well, first of all, like I said, if you ever want to ask me any questions, you can just go on Facebook under RW Biga. That's BIGA. If you have any questions, you can go there, join my group, join my page, as it's called. Or there are plenty of other groups on Facebook. I mean, if you look it up, just like writers, just put up the word writers or authors, there are dozens and dozens of them. Get ideas from other writers, because, people will tell you, because, there's other stuff you have to, watch out for too. You have to watch out for, sometimes there are scams out there, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well,
with, some publishing companies, you have to be careful.
Yeah.
So it's always good to learn that kind of stuff.
All right. Well, fantastic. So if you guys have any questions or looking for a little guidance, go ahead and reach out to Bob. He's wonderful. He's extraordinary. He's a great person. So do not hesitate to go follow his Facebook group. Go purchase one of his books on Amazon, or send him a message to ask him any questions if you need a little bit more help in your process. So, Bob, thank you for sharing with us today what you got going on. I'm so excited for you. It's great to see you. Great to have you back on the show. You guys, this is your host, Deanna Radulescu with Label Free Podcast. Live your best life. You must live label free. As always, don't forget to subscribe, follow, rate, review, comment, share, all those good things. And I'll be back soon with more dynamic guests.